So, similarly, we're going to do sort of a battleship kind of deal with this guy. It's going to be a little harder fitting in the batteries. Getting the general shape down. Suppose they have decent building blocks I can start with at least. So the very front of this dude gonna, of course, be these armor plates, because these armor plates are amazing. They have lots of HP. I'm thinking I'll actually do sort of a clamshell kind of deal. So, be a little bit of a space between these. As far as weapons go, really, like, only these lasers right here, I would say, are any good. Like, the others are just kind of meh, to be honest. Really love these guys. They're very effective. Give enough space where they won't collide with anything. Ideally, this should be firing off at all times. So, anything that they would run into, they would just sort of kill. Problem I'm gonna have is filling in all the space, though. Honestly, I probably don't need to put a clamshell here. I could probably just have the bottom shell there. Probably an easier way to go. Just needed to absorb damage. Also not too sure about what hovers I'm going to use. This faction has a lot of hovers to go through. Don't recall if I've tested the differences between them. So, basic ones, definitely about the venture height. Isn't great, isn't ideal. They're the large dudes. And it seems like the whole deal with these covered large flippers is just that they have adjustment thrusters built in. I think is how they work. Yeah. That gets slightly higher. Large thruster. Of course, we can just add on the hover controller for these guys, because that's allowed. Get them nice and high above everything. Might actually go vertical. Put the cab on. That. I think that'd be kind of cooler anyway. Either way, though. It's getting late. I am quite tired. It's been over 4 hours of this. Sure, it's gonna be heavily edited down for the YouTube video. So I think I'm gonna call it here. We do have plenty of money left over to finish this guy off, thankfully. So won't have to spend another day of just mining. We are returning to TerraTech for the finale. If you missed the previous episodes, we have been building one final battleship for each faction, using only parts from that faction. All I have left now is the Better Future design, which did a little bit of testing off camera, figured out what the best propulsion is. Going to be using these large hovers, as they can get you the most height. And we're going to be using the medium adjustment thrusters. They don't give you quite as much propulsion as the medium ion drives, but they work in all directions. They're definitely better than the large adjustment thrusters. But as far as weapons go, pretty much what you see here, main weapons for this faction are just these Better Future lasers and these Better Future Gatling lasers. There are a couple of these little guys thrown in, for aesthetics. But I worked out a basic pattern for building this I'm happy with. So we're gonna pretty much just finish out the outer shell in this pattern, and then we're gonna work on the interiors on one side, then fill in the rest of the interiors on the other side, and then do the other outer shell. And that way we have a nice view of what we are building. And as you can see, it's going to be sort of like... I'm thinking I'm going to call this Buzzsaw. I don't know if you can come up with a more clever name, but it's going to have more or less a clamshell right down the middle here. It's going to have these beam lasers just down the length of it, as well as some down the sides. Definitely a scary arsenal. Really, the only downside to these is that they don't have any tracking or missiles, which really are the endgame weapon most of the time. It's just like large numbers of missiles, just because they're pretty much guaranteed to hit a target. These Gatling lasers are pretty good just for the fact they have a nice spread to them. So even if they're not necessarily like hitting all the time, they're probably going to hit something. Though they do still have to track their target. Finish up this outer shell. And we can get through those internals. I have streamed 3 days this week just doing this, plus a bunch of off-camera just building. And I will be kind of, honestly, a little bit glad to have this done with for a while. So the way my mind works is like I come up with a project and I just can't get it out of my head until I actually sit down and make it. These are some of those designs. It's taking all the best parts from each faction, do pretty much the optimal layout for each of them. Try to have these set up so that they won't obstruct one another. Yeah, I did a decent job of that. Pretty sure none of the lasers have to shoot over one another, so they should always be able to hit something within the range. And then the back end of this thing is mostly going to be aesthetic. Be sort of the weak point on the back end, where we will incorporate some of our super valuable Celestian blocks just sort of hanging off the end as a reward, because we are sending these off as invaders for other players to fight in their campaigns. And I'll probably end up putting these on the workshop when I'm done with them, for people to mess around with. Alright, so for the internals, ideally I would want these... Hey Joe, how's it going? Good. That would be disappointing if you forgot about me. after all we've been through. Yeah, I'm pretty tired too. It was honestly a little bit hard getting myself up to stream, but here we are. I want to have this over and done with so I can start on some Minecraft. Yeah, I read your little discussion on that. Got to see some of your neighbors while you were working on doors. Yeah, Minecraft. Since James has his server going. Apparently he has issues with his, I guess, Discord calls not working, like, while he's running Minecraft, so he might need to work on that before we can stream it together. But I'd like to get a little bit of a basic base going. Very excited for 1.16 to come out. Get all those new goodies. So, Bardbreaker, aka Cardsworth, will also be playing at some point. I don't know what his plans are for that, but really, I just would like to have some games that we play as a group. You know. Pretty much. Finally got, you know, all of us streaming. Took me longer to get streaming than I really anticipated, but, you know. Just have to make sure I get all of my YouTube VODs out in a reasonable amount of time. Already quite behind. But yeah, the reason why... What am I making? So this is a battleship using only parts from one faction. I've gone through and made battleships for each faction using only parts from that faction. Some of them have obvious, you know, superiority over others, but it's sort of like as optimized for each group as you can get them. And this is the final one. This is the Better Future faction. They have lots of lasers, as you can see here. Pew pew. Tons and tons of damage output. Slightly on the weaker side. I mean, hard to say which one's my favorite. The Venture Corporation one came out a lot better than I thought it would. It's definitely on the weaker side, but it's performs better than I thought it would. Of course, the GeoCorp one is sort of like a mining faction. So, their overall... they have terrible weapons. Let's just say that. But they're pretty much just like the big, you know, high HP group. And this is the high-tech. You know, these guys have all the cool devices that really, you wish you had for the other organizations sometimes. But their weapons are all kind of medium range. Definitely not as good as some of the other factions. And their hovers are quite decent. Yeah, the Venture guys I mentioned earlier, like lightweight, speedster kind of guys. So, none of their stuff has very high HP. But, some nice versatility to it. Yeah. Nice streamlined looking faction here. Definitely takes a little bit to actually build things of this size. Just because there are no real quality of life building tools. You have to manually place down every single block. And every block you either have to craft or buy or, you know, pick up off of an enemy you killed. So most of these I've spent the campaign just accumulating blocks. Let's see, actually, might not want the propulsion here. Ideally, you want your propulsion right down at the center of mass. So, I'm going to remove these real quick. Yeah. The real problem with the game overall is just the lack of challenge in the end game of the campaign, at least. There's lots of like cool side modes you can do within the game. And the connection points on most of this faction stuff isn't too bad. It's definitely hard to work with Venture, just because most of their parts have very limiting connection points. Let's see. Probably best if I have these set up. No. Yeah, I want these vertical, I think. Your problem with the game is that you haven't played the game, Joe. You would know how to do all of this, and more, if you just, you know, played it. Gave it a shot. Of course, I'm not sure your computer could actually handle any of this. Certainly not on this scale. This game definitely has some challenge with larger vehicles like this. You usually expect most of the players to be kind of casual and, you know, not being able to properly build something this large. But, I mean, practice would make you good at it. Getting coaching from Steve would make you good at it. You have a great resource right here, Joe. You're just not using it. Got our propulsion right down the middle. You know, I haven't actually played Terraria. I'm a little bit shying away from it just because, like, side-scrolling. For something like that, I definitely prefer, like, a top-down kind of building. Sort of like, what's it called? Dwarf Fortress, or RimWorld. Like, those are very good examples of, like, kind of game I would be down to play. Just like building sideways feels really weird to me. Yeah, I mean, 16-bit, you know, is slightly turned off, but it's not that big of a deal. As long as there's, like, a sense of immersion going on. There's quite a few, like, Minecraft-esque clones out there that I would be down for as well. Let's see. Need a lot more of these guys. Might actually go through the rest of my money building this, but we'll find out. I spent like quite a few days just like letting this game run in the background, collecting money. It's really what the end game turns into. It's like the fastest way to earn money is just like to let miners run while you're AFK. This one's definitely a little bit less complicated to build than the other designs I've worked on, but definitely on the expensive side. Let's see. Actually, I want this here. Yes. Might actually remove like these central ones. It's usually good to have like your propulsion on like the front and the rear of the ship, and not so much in the middle. That messes with turning. I mean, it's just running like collecting money. You know? It's like not something you have to be there for. Not gonna be like any real attacks while you're gone. The rest of the time you can spend like building and doing missions and doing the fun stuff. You just need money to build things, especially this large. Let's see, turn that to the side so the parts can get out. So, center of mass should be like right around here. We'll only want these boosters. Hey, you have it. Yeah. There's lots of, you know, just like the sumo mode and racing mode. You can do like challenges there. I definitely did a lot of the multiplayer versus, which hard to come by. People playing that nowadays, sadly. But it's a game with a lot of potential. There's definitely stuff to do. It just needs like a hook for new players, I feel. People who don't know what they're doing like can get some actiony satisfaction out of playing it. It's probably gonna be more than enough propulsion. Don't need those. Really, there's no enemy designs that I will come across that will be able to stand up to this thing. At least, I mean, there's like a small chance I might come across like an invader that could give me a run for my money, but really not a whole lot of scary enemies that I have to worry about. Yeah, he's that hard leg. He occasionally has me over to Leg's place. It has been a while, though. It's gonna be hard now that he's moved into a new house. Far away from me. Enjoy your lurking, Havoc. But, you know. So the reason why I call this the real finale is because after we're done building all of these and sending them off as invaders, we're actually going to have a little tournament between them. See which faction is truly the best. And as you can see down here, under this little marker, the radical research, I actually went and bought the little research and development pack specifically for this, so that we can have our designs versus each other. Go up game, where's the train slowly moving through the world. Make sure it doesn't derail, moving tracks in front of it. So it's like that scene from Wallace and Gromit, where Gromit's constantly putting down tracks in front of a moving train. I don't know, have you seen the Wallace and Gromit movies, Joe? You definitely see those at some point. Good old wholesome claymation humor. The wrong trousers. Yes. Yes, that was the movie with the penguin and the train that I had mentioned before. Hopefully this will actually meet together and roll properly. Definitely people who search for the games like on Twitch and such. Nice, that'll do. Rest of space, probably just need gyroscopes and such. Alright, I never need to make a point to put in the shields first. Which we need to get ourselves close to this charging station. Yeah. I'd say TerraTech is definitely, like, past its prime. Not a whole lot of people still play it. But, still fun. It's fun in its own right. I mean, maybe, you know, just let me know ahead of time. I'm a little bit nervous to make the ride over to your place. It's kind of, you know, gray and sad and highway-y. But, you know, I'll do it. Really prefer if we, like, got some online games to do, though, you know? Alright, is that lining up properly? Yes. Okay. Next level up. On there. Just fit in the hovers underneath. Probably only other thing I really want to put in here are some gyroscopes. I'm a little bit worried about this thing tipping over. Never have enough gyroscopes. They really don't do a whole lot being this small, but you know, might as well shove them in there. This guy's gonna be like standing up tall, so like flipping over sideways is going to be a real possibility.
I'll be back.
Thank you for the follow. I am frankly a person. I too am frankly a person. I mean, if you think robots are people, which I do. I do question if Joe would think robots are people, though. I get like a robot racist kind of sense from him. Because he didn't like Nier Automata. So you should be good to take that out and move the cab. Ultimately, people are just machines, built with, you know, smaller biological machines. Yeah, that's true, it did not run well. But I specifically recall your main complaint being with not liking the main character. Just not being able to find any personal attachment to them. That's right. Which, frankly, most people are attracted to that ass. Well, emotionless actually is inaccurate, because they did have emotions. And, you know, unfulfilling is definitely inaccurate. Like, they're supposed to be. Like, that's kind of their job, to be without emotions. But, like, emotions are forbidden. But, you know, we still have them. It's one of those things. I mean, if you're gonna believe, like, the dialogue, you, like, might as well not actually read a lot of the time. Because there's so much subtext to most, like, stuff. Like, you have to pick up on those subtle hints. Or else what's the point? The reality of life is that there's a lot of liars out there. You just go off of what they say, you're pretty much screwed. Falling into the traps. No. Basically, you know, more advanced robots sent in to deal with much more basic robots, which are evolving. I mean, that depends on the machine. Is it an AI or just something someone built? So you could definitely get some sort of emotion out of an AI if it was, you know. I've been absorbing enough data. I mean, assuming robots have subtext. Okay, these are robots built by people. Like GLaDOS has subtext. I don't know if... I don't know why you would, like, directly associate these with, like, real robots. Really the wrong way to go. Real robots are generally far less advanced. Not on the level of science fiction. Yeah, it's kind of like... Near Automata is, like, basically, like... You know, humans sent in to deal with an ant colony that's growing out of control. I haven't actually watched a playthrough of Doki Doki, but I do get the general premise. Yes, I recall you mentioning that. Having the person named Monica donating. We're just building ourselves a happy little war machine. Have a secret little laser beam over here. No, only we'll know about. And sadly, that's the real reason why this would never work with a quality of life, like mirror building kind of setup. It's just because a lot of the blocks themselves cannot mirror. They have odd shapes and odd sets of connection points, which simply would not work. Go and get the other side of lasers on. And have a wicked buzzsaw kind of deal going on with these straight laser beams. Come down all the way with this clamshell. And sideways. There we go. Rest of the way across. Going to have an awesome broadside, but I'm mostly excited for when enemies get directly within the range of these straight lasers rather than the Gatling ones. The firepower is going to be immense, and this will also be the highest flying of the craft that we have built. Going to have that advantage. The GeoCorp one, not having any ranged weapons, will hopefully be able to run into this thing, but I'm not entirely sure it will be able to. And what is YCS? Yes, of course, that thing I would have no interest in, or, you know, would know anything about. I mean, look, Yu-Gi-Oh's got like 10,000 cards or whatever. Like, you know, I'll appreciate some of the artwork. I'll do your cards for you. But don't make me learn the rules. Like, maybe back in the day, like, when we had, you know, just a big old box of Yu-Gi-Oh cards and, like, built decks. And the rules were much simpler back then. You know, we didn't do, like, a lot of special summonings. Hell, we didn't even do, like, fucking chains, traps, or whatever. We didn't have the like, cards necessary to do that crap. Yeah, you never got back to me on that art project you want me to do, I know. But, c'est la vie. I'm really floating too far. It's actually a problem. Interesting. I may not actually have enough hover propulsion on this. Hey, James. How you doing tonight? This thing is a giant battleship. Basic idea is that this game has multiple factions all with their own technology, and I'm building one big old battleship for each faction. And this does not have enough hover power, apparently. Okay. Duly noted. Curious how much height I can actually get with power increase. Ooh, yeah, definitely not as high as I thought it'd be. Suppose I can fill in the rest of the space with regular hovers. Yeah, I will look at those links later. Generally avoid opening things while I'm working. But our future hovers definitely don't carry as much weight as some of the others. But they have a lot to work with. And I'm floating away again. I don't know. Do you still make, like, you said you're making pizza. So is it like your Parmesan pizza that you usually do? Not gonna lie, that one was a bit inedible. Yeah. So, anyone who doesn't know, Joe's Pizzas pretty much are, like, you know, regular, you know, dough, regular sauce, and then Parmesan instead of, like, regular pizza cheese. Which, it's very grainy. Not like fully melted Parmesan. Like powdered. I mean, I will give it a try, Joe. No promises. Okay. As long as you're improving, that's all that matters. Of course, you have the strangest sense of taste out of anyone I know. So, I'm not sure something you say is good would be good to a normal person. It's always hard trying to build internally. That's a hard time hashing to the right block. Should be good though. Right, yes. And the medium hovers for this faction for some reason only hook onto corners. So can't really use them. Did you watch the John Oliver piece on coronavirus? Here's some of those foreign corona songs. Wait. Ah. Yeah, so like to promote like people washing their hands. Really? You don't like John Oliver? I thought you liked him. I'm sure I've heard you mention him before. Yeah, basically just like all these other countries that, you know, have their, you know, health services together, or like putting out like promotional songs for like, you know, awareness of coronavirus and that people that should be washing their hands and such. I mean, the jokes don't always land, but he always covers something interesting. Always worthwhile listening to the research they've done. Right, finish. No, it's gonna be so hard working at this angle. Might be worth. No. Ugh. Ugh. Build mode gets funky sometimes. Alright. Basically have to do it so put on the hover pad and then another gun. One after another. The only way I'm gonna be able to fit that in there. No, I didn't see that. There's like the whole thing where like one of the Iranian leaders like was confirmed to have coronavirus, but like before that he kept appearing on television like coughing and like wiping his nose constantly, and like no one, like there's like huge distrust of like the leadership in Iran, so like, you know, none of the actual citizens are sure if he has coronavirus or not, or if he's just there to like fearmonger. And didn't Trump say it was like a hoax or something at some point? Of course, backtracked on that. I don't know. It is hard to keep up with what every politician says, but I appreciate shows that sort of give you the gist of it all. They've got you more or less quarantined there. It's a scary thing. No. I just know that apparently, like, even the Walmarts here are out of toilet paper. I don't know why people are specifically after toilet paper. But, you know, that's a thing. The world hasn't had a good scary plague in a while. You know, coronavirus, it's not that scary of a name. We need to give, like, a color name. The Purple Plague. Actually, I wonder, like, what qualifies in spreading illness like that to be considered a plague. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not surprised that we've had a terrible response in the U.S. just with how, you know, Trump treats, like, any government organization that isn't, like, entirely necessary. Even the ones he does treat. Even the ones that are necessary. The horrible funding cuts. Like, these are emergency response deals. Always be active. Clearly I messed something up along the way. One of these hover pads is not aligned properly. Why didn't I notice that sooner? Now the right side and left side are different. Good. I kinda almost don't care at this point. It's too much work putting all this together. Fortunately, this group actually has the stabilizing computer. This actually takes quite a bit of focus to build something this large. It's hard for me to reach at. Hopefully it will remain stable enough. All this. Relatively lightweight. Of course. Make everything about that wall. That useless wall. Could be able to just seal this off now. Nothing else I need to add to the interior. Super dumb thing is all of, like, the sudden, like, Asian racism that's come about as a result of the coronavirus. So much nonsense. Fear and stupidity. Terrible combination. Okay. Well, it's hovering much better. Not as high as it could be, which is up here, but, you know. It's something. Also, I need to add those in, don't I? So, hopefully I can reach them all from here. Ah, the lasers! Scary as fuck. Blue death. Exquisite. Yeah. I'm curious, like, how much actual damage output it will have compared to some of the other vehicles I've made. Like, definitely looks scary, but basically this thing has to get through an enemy's shields to deal any damage. So, you know, better feature does not have any explosive damage. Explosive damage being the only thing that can get through shields, really, aside from melee. Okay, it worked. Okay. You'd have some pretty nice turning on it as well. It's a little bit front heavy at the moment. Oh. Enemy spawned.
Kill it! Kill it with lasers!
Okay. Hopefully that'll keep it from tipping over. Stop it in the air a little bit. Really hoping this would hover a little bit higher, though. Unfortunate. But yeah, so now we can just do the back portion, which will pretty much all be aesthetic. We also have to add in a cockpit, which, let's see, I'm going to use a little rounded edge. Use a smaller one. Right. Forward-facing lasers, like how we have it on the bottom there. Who wants lasers? Pew! It's like a peacock. Battleship mating dance. Hey, yeah, Chris. On the tail end of this design. Then we can get into a little tournament of all the big vehicles I've built. I never said anything about Parasite. I just don't know anything about the story. Definitely did not bad talk it, I just don't really care that it has awards. Like, having awards doesn't really mean anything to me, as far as movies go. Care about, like, you know, the appeal or the themes behind it. Which, again, I don't really know anything about Parasite. Would not be opposed to watching it. I haven't actually watched... Yeah. I've never actually saw Suicide Squad. But, it's part of what makes, Birds of Prey seem so unappealing. Seems to be taking place in the same universe, so, like... Yeah. Very strange iteration of the Joker. I do kind of wonder if, like they'll continue, like, the cinematic universe that Joker takes place in. Like, maybe he'll have an actual Harley. And sort of see, like, Joker turning into the Joker from, fucking Suicide Squad, though. Just like that level of degradation mentally. Doesn't seem out of the range of possibility. Really dangerous to hit undo with a large vehicle like this. You can send things flying. Put it in. I mean, my thoughts on Joker are pretty much the same. Like, it's as meh as I expected it to be. Like, I can appreciate that it did a good job. You know, the actor fit the role, but, like, in general, I'm more interested in, like, establishing a cinematic universe at this point. Many great stories that never get fully told. And, like, I have a hard time seeing that universe, like, going any further. No. I suppose I'm a bit numbed to mental illness at this point. I guess you could say. It's like, conceptually, it has, you know, not been that interesting for me to watch. Never saw Aquaman. I heard that was pretty good, which feels weird. I don't know. Like it. I don't know. I didn't. The first movie that Aquaman appeared was in the Justice League, as I recall. Like, it was just kind of sudden. Wasn't expecting, like, I don't know, too much out of a movie like that. No. It's a pity that the DC, like, cinematic universe didn't go, like, it wasn't as well received as it could have been. I mean, I honestly didn't think it was that bad. Like, you know, there are obvious issues. Yeah, the whole Batman versus Superman deal didn't help. It was pretty awful, but, I mean, Superman actually felt like Superman in that movie, as opposed to all the previous films. He had some good lines. Yeah, the whole Martha deal. What if all of the Mother Cubes were named Martha? That would have completely changed the Justice League movie. Also, like, if they continue that cinematic universe, I would like to see, like, the proper old school, like, Justice League hangout. And, like, a proper Legion of Doom would be fun. Yeah. I actually kind of forget what happened to him. They chose a really weird actor for Lex Luthor. But, I don't actually recall. Like, is he even alive still? I don't remember. Yeah. And the whole fact that they made Doomsday that early on. It's such a, like, poor iteration of him. Really sad. Yeah. No lore. And of course, none of this was as bad as the fucking Ghost in the Shell movie. I don't even want to talk about that. So bizarre. I forget if I actually watched it or if I just saw a lot of clips. Yeah, they did a really weird deal with, fucking Galactus. Let's see, probably use these actually. And the back, mostly thrusters, I suppose. Would have sort of a stereotypical sci-fi feel to it. Random thrusters thrown about. That actually is for power propulsion. Definitely better to just use hovers. Those the anchors would look nice. Always thought the anchors had a nice booster kind of look to them. I don't know though. You have a good night, Ray Sniper. Have to watch that VOD to pick up the tournament at the end of all this. Where all the real action happens. It'd technically be easier to kill this thing from the back than you would sacrifice all these tasty money blocks. No, go ahead and buy some more of these. Fill things in. We should have a decent amount of money left over. You gotta be careful placing blocks in this. Don't want to be too quick about it. There's a moment when putting down a block that after you put down a block, the entire vehicle is effectively saved and has to reload all the different connection points. So it might reload some connection points faster than others. It might accidentally connect to the wrong piece. little flippy do there. Let's see. Space there, space there. Oh right, I forgot that the hovers aren't the same on both sides. It's not going to match up perfectly. Be good enough just to keep it balanced though. Seems adequate. Just need a couple final touches. Need ourselves a radar on the side there. An altimeter. And a persistent terminal. And of course we can't miss a few lights. Gotta have a bunch of unnecessary lights. Of course, this section doesn't have a whole lot of lights to choose from. Got these longer ones. Throw those on. Alright. Pew pew! So yes. Much weaker from the back. Decent turning rate. Let's see what the max speed is like. I don't have a speedometer on here, do I? Throw that on, see how fast we get. Not terribly fast. I was expecting it to be a bit faster. Definitely still leaning backwards a little bit. Takes a moment to lock onto enemies. Absolute overkill though. It's always better for a hover to lean backwards than to lean forwards, as that enables it to fly over awkward terrain. Get a little bit of a head start on hills. I think that'll look better on the end. Yes. Alright. So we're gonna call this better feature UTR Buzzsaw. No, not enough characters. Just remove that space. There we go. Unless someone has something more clever. I'm open to suggestions. That is scary looking. Well, we give it our last send-off. Too tired to stay up. Oh wait. Gotta give it a good picture. Have to get a nice background. Turned around. Yes. Have a good night, Joe. Did I not? Oh, I messed it up. 1 second. Take a picture. Invader. And off it goes to someone else's campaign to fight. Someone's going to have a fun time with that. It actually costs more than we have resources left in our bank. So, we're going to switch to this guy. See what the total cost is. Total cost is 12 million bucks for that guy. Definitely the most expensive. Next was the Hawkeye Albatross. 5 mil. Metro Speedstar, only 2 mil. Almost 6 million with our GSO craft, the Chunkster, and a little over 6 mil with our Geocorp Terror Cube. So with that, we're going to move on to the main event. So I have set up a bracket. We're going to have each of these face each other in the research and development creative mode. I have the other guys all loaded up and charged. Look at all this lag. Just need to load this guy in and get him charged up. Create a save. And then we can have these fight each other one by one. Horrid lag.